Hi, my name is Janet Molbeck. I'm the Executive Director of Interweave. We're a small nonprofit here in New Jersey working to support spirituality for daily living, an integrated spirituality that nurtures wellness, the common good, and your spiritual life. Each year, we have a telethon. It's a way of keeping that work going. If you didn't have a chance to tune in, we hope you'll take advantage of this second opportunity. We want to thank you for supporting our work with 12 wonderful conversations about nurturing hope through prayer and practice, art and action. Thank you in advance for being there for Interweave and for the spiritual life in raising up the importance of hope. What we say here at Interweave is, let hope live in you. Thank you. Happy holiday. All right. Our next panel guest is Diane Riley, friend and colleague. Welcome, Diane Riley. I'm going to say a little bit about who you are. Diane is an ordained deacon of the Episcopal Diocese of Newark. She serves as Archdeacon, wow, for mission and service. Is that correct? Mission services?
It is.
And she's a resource, and that is a resource to congregations, faith communities, and I want to say the wider community, because a lot of times Diane is putting out information that we all need to hear, talking about the importance of coalitions right now. Here is not just an advocate, I'm going to call her, you know how she's an archdeacon? She's like a super advocate. Diane recently retired as executive director of the Supportive Housing Association of New Jersey. They'll learn more about that. We'll let you tell them about what that is. And she's still there, thank goodness, but in another capacity and continuing to do good work there and good work widely. I mean, and let me just say, it should be noted that you received the governor's award for excellence in housing and economic development, the Hall of Fame award for your work. You have been instrumental. You have been an ambassador for affordable housing in New Jersey, and in particular for supporting housing with for people with disabilities or people challenged in some way. So why don't we start out there, and I'll ask you to tell people, if they don't already know, about the Supportive Housing Association.
Yeah.
It's getting late, so I'm going to start to blur my words. It's happening.
Yeah. I can't believe you're still
Still standing.
Yeah, still sitting but standing. Yeah. So yeah, thank you, Janet, for the really kind words. Supportive Housing, the Supportive Housing Association. I'm still ED for about 10 more days till the end of the year. But I'm really
okay. I didn't mean to take you out of it prematurely.
No, and I'm really excited that we have I have someone who works for me that's, we've been working together for several years, and she's going to take over, and I couldn't be more thrilled because she's going to have a fresh take, and she's really, really super qualified, and I'm really excited to do that transition because it's so important for our organization, which is small. It's a statewide organization. It does have a big impact, but we're small staff. So, Janet, how important it is to do that transition, and how you worry about your organization that does such good work like Interweave. So our organization's 26 years old. It is a statewide trade association, basically nonprofit. And our member organizations are members that build affordable housing, but also members that also provide services. Some of our members provide services that are so critically important to many different people with different barriers in the state. And it allows them to live independently, out of institutions, out of, more restrictive settings in the community where we all want to live, right? With our friends, with our family, where we work, where we live. So we're really, really blessed to do this work. And we do it with a coalition, our members, I would say our supportive housing community, because they encompass many people. We have state leaders in our community. We have, financial institutions. We have so many people. It takes so many people to do this work. So I really love working in community and through coalitions. It's really nourishing for me to work with people and to work together. And I was on a few minutes early and I heard your previous guest, who was a teacher, teaching, teaches at Innerweave, Scott, right? Is that, yeah.
Todd.
And Todd, I'm sorry, Todd. And he said, you know, uh, I'm nourished and I see the hope. I see the hope in my coalitions, in the people I work with every day, not only the people with lived experience that have barriers, but through the people that work in the supportive housing industry. They're so nourishing to be around. It's not a job for them. So I really do see that hope every day. I feel blessed for that because it's hard work, right?
It is hard work, and you are, you know, it, it's not every day that I'm like staunch. The word staunch
Yeah,
comes to
right.
mind. Um, so we've been having these conversations. We had a conversation. We've been touching on different realities,
Yeah.
need of this particular time as we go forward, and I certainly, um, but let's start out because we will broaden with
Mhm.
affordable housing, which is our main
Yeah,
topic of
topic for
interview.
today.
And so my question is, um, the action of working for affordable housing, that's our subject.
Mhm.
Why has this been, because this is not a now thing, this is
Oh.
past 20 years.
Mhm.
I'm New York born and bred, but I'm now a Jersey girl. And for 20 years in my life in New Jersey and beyond, I have been part of witnessing the struggle for affordable housing. And so my first question is, why?
What gives,
It's
right?
obvious.
Yeah.
Why is
Why
this
is
and
it so
has
hard?
this been?
Yeah.
Why is this
Why?
a boulder? I mean, it's sort of like, hey, you'd be like, yes, you should be children, people, it's just like, why is this? It seems like a no-brainer that people need affordable housing.
Yeah, it is a no-brainer that people need affordable housing. And it's kind of gotten, the term affordable housing has now been used really to designate, when people think really, really low income. But, when I grew up in Queens, New York, right? There was a lot of housing. It wasn't all single family. People lived in apartments,
It's
and it
an
was
apartment.
affordable, right?
It
It was
was
affordable.
affordable.
So not everybody had a house, but in New Jersey, most of the homes are single family. Now, how many people can you get in New Jersey? If everything is single family and you now have 9 million people,
Right.
well, you need to build more units, more opportunities for people to live outside of that single family model, right? And so I think we've gotten away from, we've never had that. And so we were getting more behind and more behind and more behind. And yet we have more people living in the state. And, people, even people living, working, police officers, and, many people who work, are working jobs that we all grew up working, our friends, our families were, but they can't afford to live here, right? And so we have people working in the community. We need those people working in the community. They can't afford to live here. So something has to give, right? And yet you have people being entrenched in the idea that my community is going to change, and all of the affordable people are really low income, and that's scary, and therefore there's a judgment there. So that's kind of where the
Right.
the ideas go, this fear.
How did that get co-opted? I mean,
Well,
how did that happen? Yeah,
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
you want teachers to
You
be able
do,
to
you
live in your
do,
neighborhood. You
right?
want
I mean,
nurses to be able to live in.
now we talk about workforce housing. Workforce housing. Well, it's affordable. You're still making an affordability option there, but yet it's workforce, and that. So I think we do need a lot of options for people. And it had been used in New Jersey so for so long to exclude people, this single family zoning that we talk about, single family can't build something bigger or different because it's single family zoned, right? So we have that, but it really, really was code and used to exclude people, and many times people of color. Um, so it's been excluding people for years. So when finally the lawsuits came, and I feel really lucky to be in this state that did that fight. Not some other states are still behind where we are now. So we can take some victory laps and say, okay, we're doing it. So sometimes you don't always see that progress, but we have made progress. Um, so, those lawsuits really made a difference because they were able to prove that it's exclusionary, and should be every town, not just one tiny town, not Newark, not one little town, should have all of the affordable housing, right? We need to build it throughout the state, and every town has to have their fair share of that. And that's really what the lawsuits were about. But it's taken 50 years of lawsuits, and two steps forward and one step back, and two steps forward and one step back. And
And it sounds like we're still in
we're
that
still fighting
forward
it.
because
Yeah, we
my
are.
next question was going to be, and first of all, thank you for going to Trenton.
Mm.
Thank you for fighting for this legislation so that fair housing could begin to be created. But now I already hear rumblings,
Oh, yeah, they're gonna fight it.
municipalities are going to quote unquote fight this, just the way
Yeah,
they
they
fought,
are.
wanted to send out their, let Elizabeth and Newark get build
Yeah.
our
But don't
affordable.
forget, people live in municipalities, okay? So it's not just, we say that municipalities are going to fight it. Well, they're fighting it because people who live in the town are fighting it, okay? So let's all share in this, right? So
Us.
people are
That's
complain. It's
us.
us. It's
Us.
us. So people complain, and they don't understand why we have to do this, because it's not me. I'm not needing it. So, but yet they do need it. Everybody I talk to, so when I deal with supportive housing, it's affordable, but it also has services because if people with the right kind of services can live independently, they, I will tell you, I get calls every day, and they have relatives, I need, my niece is struggling with behavioral health issues, and she needs, some services, and she needs affordable housing. How can you help? Well, when it's your niece, you're all of a sudden okay with that, right? So I have a person, my child has autism, and I'm worried that they're becoming older, and I'm not going to be around forever to help. So I need to get them to a place where they're becoming more independent, and they need to be able to live. And so, okay, it's your child. You're okay with that, And so I think it touches everybody. It touches everybody. Your mom, my mom when
My
she
mom
got
did
older.
live in
And
affordable
oh,
housing
yeah,
in her
people
later
on
years.
fixed incomes. Can I afford to live here? I don't want to go to a nursing home. Maybe I can get the kind of services I need and stay in my community in affordable house. Yes, of course we want this. We want this, right? We want this for our community, our neighbors, our friends, our family. We do. We really do. But when it comes down to it, people still fight it. And they're like, oh, I want senior housing, but not the other kind of housing. So I always talk to when I talk to groups, um, I do hear that sometimes. They'll say, well, please, I think we should build more housing for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and not for the people with mental health and not for the homeless, and I'm like, no, I don't agree with you. I don't agree with you.
There's always
Pie
that,
bigger.
not on my block, not in my backyard.
No, make the pie bigger, bigger for everybody. That's what you have to do. You cannot be siloed like that and think of that.
Well, let me ask you
So,
a question because a lot of the conversation, it's a two-part question, has been around that the state is going to come and take away our ability to create the character. You're going to steal the character of our town. But the fact of the matter is that people postpone their responsibility. It's only when people postpone and postpone and postpone and then refuse that the state would come in. I'm,
and the
I,
state doesn't, you're talking about a builder's remedy. The state doesn't. If you can show that you want to build it in certain ways, you have control. Towns
the
have
control.
control of building it. They can do it in a myriad of ways.
So
Um,
that's just look over here, don't look over
Don't
here.
look over there because that if I say it, I actually remembered the last time because we're talking about this new legislation doing for the next 10, for going forward. But they had been fighting the last round, which was postponed for like 20 years. That's why, we're really behind in that. But when we were getting to the crunch of that, people were having community meetings where they were showing literally skyscrapers in New York and saying, this is what they want to build. And I would be going, where are they getting these pictures? It's just really disingenuous because it's so misleading. But I think what they were saying is we have this and we want to build, more in one place because we want to get over the hump of how many we have to build. But it still doesn't mean they have to build it that way. Honestly, it doesn't. And if you have a very dense town and there's not a lot of room, that's taken into account when you do the calculation. So it's very misleading all over the place. Um, for that. So I would say, it's really something you really do want to talk to people in who build the affordable housing. Go talk to other people who are using affordable housing and living there. Listen to their stories and see what's actually happened because there's a lot of data now because we've been fighting it for 50 years. We have the data. You can look back, and all of those scary things that everybody says didn't happen. Well, your property values did not go down. If you look at Mount Laurel, the test case for when, what this all started, you can
Right?
look at their town now, and it's a more diverse town, and it's a better town, and their property values did not go down.
Right.
So stop let's look at
Don't
what
listen to the
really is
scary guy.
true.
So you came a while back and gave a presentation in Summit and for the Summit Interfaith sponsored by the Summit Interfaith Council. And one of the things that really was heartening for
Mhm.
me was hearing and early hearing you talk about some of the projects that you have worked on that were inspired by building projects for people with disabilities because earlier in the show we were the show I'm calling it the show now
Yeah,
the
yeah.
telephone earlier in the telephone We were talking about how when we rest and take, kind of are in a centered place, a God-centered place, we can move then into creativity and imagination so that we can do good work, God's work. And if ever I saw that in play, it was when you were showing that presentation and you told a story that I'm going to ask you to share about a project because you were kind of trying just to open people's minds to, hey, it doesn't have to look like this. It could look like this. It could look like
Mhm.
this. It could look like this. What do you want it to look like? And you told a story about a community that built some affording housing, and there was um was it an autistic family?
Well, there's several. We have a lot of videos on our website, so www.shanj.org, and there's videos in our housing hub. And so, yes, I mean, I think we have situations where we have two men living together, and they share a home, and they're both autistic. They're adult men, and they're roommates, and they have a woman who lives in and takes for the overnights and things. And as it turned out, she also was benefited from the living there in the, you know, living there basically, for her rent, her portion of the thing, because she helped them and she lived there. And they both go to work every day and go to their activities or whatever they're doing. They both work, they have part-time jobs, and they come back, and she's there and she helps them with the grocery shopping and she helps them with that. And they both live perfectly happy lives. Now, and this came about because the one of the young men, their mom passed away. They took care of him for many years. And the dad, had to think of what the next step was. So he wound up having this home, and it became too expensive for him to maintain it, even with the supports and the state funding that they get. And so he looked for a roommate and he got it, and then he moved out. And so now his child is on his own. Another person has housing, and they're living in a community in a townhouse. And it's a great story because they're completely independent, right? They're completely independent of an institution or a kind of place that's really restrictive. So they're living in the community like everybody else and their neighbors, right? There are many, many stories. I have a young man who's uh we it's in Irvington, and it's in a building, and the building is not all affordable. It's market rate, what they call market rate. So other people live in that building. It's a beautiful new building. I think there's probably about, I don't know, 100 units there or whatever. And they set aside a certain amount for people with disabilities. And this is a benefit that we've struggled to maintain and advocated for, that if you do build some supportive housing, you get double the credit for your obligation. So it's like a carrot. You know, you can add some units for people with disabilities and get an extra bonus, and then therefore have to build less, units. So it's a way of incentivizing that. So in this building, they set aside that, and this young man who was in an institution was had the opportunity to live in this apartment, and the apartment is serviced by the Ark of Essex, and they have a office in the building, and they service several apartments for people with disabilities. And he's living independently, and he goes down the block and he takes the bus to work. He works for Catholic Charities. He's interviewed our on our website, and he's great. He's like, I like to cook, I like to make lasagna, and he's just so happy. He's so happy living there. And it's just a wonderful thing. I mean, I don't know if those were your stories, the stories,
I
but
just remember in particular a story of a father who was
that's, yeah.
he the one that who's an architect or a builder?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So we also have a father and yeah. So we have someone on our board, Thriven Design, as he's an architect. They do beautiful, beautiful buildings. They design beautiful units and they have designed, I'll just talk a little bit about some of their designs. So they have designed in a large building they designed in a very dense Bergen County municipality. And they have built into their design group homes into the building. So, and not even on the same floor. So there'll be a group home in a, which is 4 bedrooms and people will live together. Like you think of a group home, it's, sort of a ranch house, right? Or whatever. If people know what group homes are, 4 people living together who have disabilities. And it's there. And on the top of that, the next floor up, it's just 2 apartments that are 2 bedrooms. And then there's another group home. Like it's completely integrated into the building and the rest are market rate. So you can really say how people can live just completely seamlessly into your community. But his daughter is very disabled, and she does live in a supportive housing because she's able to do that, and they've been able to do that. But when the pandemic hit, just so he talks about her being in supermarkets or whatever. He was taking her to Home Depot. He took her to Home Depot. And you know how like you have the fan going in home, they're building, it's summer. They have fans going. And he talks about her just feeling she's feeling the fan and just lighting up and feeling such joy and just the fan coming and that people seeing her they were happy, they were smiling, they were seeing, life through her eyes. And it's such a beautiful thing. That's what living community means, to have people not in the shadows, to have them out there with other people and to see and remember the joy of just such a simple thing. And I remember him saying to me, and this was a beautiful thing, that it's so important for her to go to church. And they take her to church, and that she feels so welcome there that when the pandemic hit, he couldn't drive past the church because she would get upset that she couldn't go in there.
Oh,
And so, I think about that. I get very emotional because this is what it means to live in your community. To have a faith community is a wonderful thing. Um, and to really be a neighbor, to be part of that. And that's what we believe the kingdom of God is, isn't it? Don't we believe that? So when I see people with disabilities, I don't think they're less than, they have different gifts and they have different abilities, but they're not less than. And I think it's important. We all need to remember that. We all need to see it and we all need to be around it more. So I don't know if those were your stories, but
well, they're wonder you've added to my bank of stories. There, some I knew and some I didn't know. I think the importance of the storytelling is the humanization of these issues, that these are not, is what will exorcise them of their evil spirits. I'm just saying it like that because we need to put the human back in affordable housing, and that is the noble work you have done. I you know, there is like a natural fear of the unknown. There is a natural fear. Um, we started the day today talking about hospitality. That's how we started the
no.
day. And our friend Delek was talking about how in ancient times nobody rang the door, you didn't get a cell phone message saying you were coming over. People just knocked at the door because they needed something, and hospitality demanded
Mm-hmm.
you open the door. Um, this is not in the spirit of hospitality that we are denying our brothers and sisters affordable housing,
Mm-hmm.
kind of a basic human right.
It's a basic human right. I do believe that. It is a basic human right.
I love that you've been so creative about showing people, like kind of illuminating something else we've been talking about, how it's possible. Look, it's possible, and it could look like this, and it
Mm-hmm.
could look good and happy. It could be good and happy and well for you and all of your community. You're going to be happy to live here. You put the human face on this story.
It's really gratifying for me to be around it because, we all need to. I'm inspired by people with lived experience. They've had a lot more barriers than I ever could imagine, and yet they feel joy. They are grateful, um, and they only want what we want. And I believe if we were touched by a family member or were touched we would have that empathy. We do have that empathy when it touches us that way. Um, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I do think there are people who believe that they're special and they haven't had anything bad happen to them, or they haven't experienced homelessness and they haven't experienced job loss and they haven't experienced this because they're somehow better, or they did everything right. I mean, I think that's a common thing that sometimes people have felt that way. And maybe it is a guard against fear. Like if I do everything right, nothing bad will happen. But that's not reality. That's not reality. Um, and we need community to be able to counteract that for sure. For
What,
sure.
what, one of the things that is amazing to me, Fletcher Harper was here a little earlier,
Mm.
and we were talking about when he was talking about protecting the planet. It's really clear in these conversations how the intersectionality of all these things.
Mm-hmm.
People need to live. People need to live in housing that's affordable. People need to drink water that's drink. These are
Yes.
basic
Basic rights that.
rights that we need to provide for our brothers and sisters.
Of course, and yet, and even so, and I'll say we all just said it. It's a basic right. We all believe it. We're people of faith. We believe this with our whole being. But it's also smarter. It's smarter. It's
And
cheaper. I mean, you want
exactly, he said, and everyone, if we do these things, he was talking about, we do these things, everyone will benefit.
everybody.
Everyone will benefit. So tell me, before we leave this, because I just want to broaden it a little bit, uh, if someone's worried about, or they're in the middle of a struggle in their municipality about affordable housing, how can they support the move? I'm going to call it a movement for affordable housing because it kind of is. It's kind of something. It is something that needs to continue to be championed. How can we advocate and champion the cause
So
of?
the best thing you can do is there's a person designated in your town that's the housing liaison, affordable housing liaison, or a planner. And you can simply, first of all, say, "Hey, I'm in favor of this. Tell me how my town is doing. What's the plan?" Because right now they're in the middle of planning, right? And I think they'd probably be happy to hear from you because they probably hear so many complaints that, so many people are calling up saying, "Yeah, yeah." So I think that would be great, and they should give it to you because it's supposed to be public knowledge. It actually is supposed to be on their website, and maybe your town has it on their website. But certainly that's going to be changing because the new law that just was passed in March has transparency built in. So there has to be more transparency about who are these people and what's the town plan and whatever. So you can simply ask that question. And then if there are you can ask them, how can I help? And how can I get on your your list for board meetings where you'll be approving developments or where you're going to be discussing affordable housing in your town, and go to them if you can to counteract the people that go to them that complain, and just say, I live here. I'm not worried. I, you know, I'm in favor of it. So there are those people. I've been at meetings where people go, and you are an advocate, Janet, in Summit, right? So where your group is showing up to these things. I remember when I was testifying last year, and I was so happy. Someone from Summit was there, like counteracting the testimony of all the people saying they didn't want it. And they were there. I'm from Summit and I want it. You know what I mean? Like, it was great. You need, legislators need to hear that. So, and towns need to hear it because they're stuck. They've got to implement some of this. So, just be aware of what's going on in your town. And if there's any way you can show up to help, do it. Do it. Or, you can always email me and I can help with that. So,
So you would be you can't so just say again you'd be contacting your housing
yeah, liaison. Your
liaison
your
and you'd be
municipal liaison for affordable housing. And there's somebody in
and
what
there's
that
would it be a committee or that you're being asked to be on or a board that you're at there?
No, you're just asking them I want to know what the plan is for my town to meet their obligations. Do you have they have a planning document. They have to have that. At some point it will be there. They should be able to tell you what it is or give it to you, or, just say, I'm interested in making sure this is going to happen and how I can help with that. And certainly our advocates for families often will try to reach out to the town planner, or the mayor or something, and say, because they're advocating for more to be built in their town for their family members, right, who might be able to live near them.
Right.
So they often get involved, and they're very effective advocates for that. So you can too. You don't have to have a family member. You can call and say, I want to make sure I live in a town that believes in this, because I want more diversity in my town. I would like my town to be more diverse. So I'm sure they'd be happy to hear that, because they get so many people that
It's
aren't saying that.
they it's it's often said that New Jersey is is it a local rule state? Is that
Home
how
rule,
home
home
rule?
rule.
Home rule. That's thank you for helping me.
Yeah, home rule.
And I only say that in the vein of the first time you hear you're like, "Oh, but I need housing and I'm going to move from this town to this town." And it took me, you know what I mean? In other words, just because you're in it doesn't necessarily you're going to end up in your town. And
No,
this reality, this kind of a strong mindset we have for home rule. New Providence is for New Providence. Summit is for
yeah,
Summit. Short Hills is for
right. And yet 500 municipalities, 500 and change, right? 500, they do some of the same things. They're trying now to try to,
Suddenly
make
they can move
partnerships.
together in one voice.
One police department in every town. I want I mean, it's not logical, right? At all. And, for people, with anybody, you want to be able to, it's not easy to get around in New Jersey. You have to have a car just about, right? So you definitely, for people who are really looking at their budget and is very tight, they need to be able to live near where they work. They can't be traveling 2 hours to get to a job, right? And that's not good for any community to have that.
No.
So it,
I'm just saying that I think I've realized in time that I need to get out of that my town for my
my
town.
town, yes,
reality, because it's a hindrance.
It is.
It's not a help in
It's
this.
not. And, things are going to change.
Yeah.
You can't have this many people living in a state and not have any town change. Like, and you don't own the town. You own your little, you might be lucky enough to own your little piece of property. And that really is
Little
all the
pot-
control you have over anything.
So I want to, while you're still here, say, talking about intersectionality,
Mhm.
that you also have, this is your work role, but your advocation is you are the Archdeacon
Mhm.
diocese supporting mission work in the diocese. The role of the deacon is
Mhm.
to, in fact, go out into the world, bring God into the world. And certainly you are a sign of that. And the way you lead the deacon community is a sign.
You're very sweet.
Thank you. Um, and all of your history of your work life, Apostle House,
Mhm.
work for the food
The food bank, food bank.
pantry.
Mhm.
We could go on and on about how there's kind of an arc to your work.
Mhm.
Um, all of those places, one, you know, the diocese is about to has just of Newark has just set out how many pillars?
Oh, I don't know.
Eight
Four,
pillars?
7? Yeah, something like that.
Seven or
Mhm.
eight pillars. There are pillars,
Yes, there are pillars.
uh, and one of them is affordable housing,
Mm,
and another one of them, as you know, I have a great
yeah.
interest in immigration.
Asian, yes.
And another one is the thing we talked about earlier, climate change.
Right, exactly.
So
Environment. It's all of a piece. It's all connected.
it's all of a piece. And then, something about that and the work that Fletcher is doing, talking about how the houses of worship need to be the moral voice.
Yes, they do.
The
We need to
moral
be that
voice.
moral voice. And
And
I'm excited in one regard, to be stepping down as ED of Supportive Housing Association. I love them, but I'm kind of excited that I might get to go testify as the Archdeacon and, be able to be using that voice as the deacon, because when you go to Trent, I have a job, I represent my company. It's hard to represent both at the same kind of voice, but now I can. And I used to just make other people do it and prep them, but now I can go and I can be that more. I can do more than just the affordable housing or supportive housing. If I feel like it's related, I can talk about climate change. I can talk about food. Food is also kind of where I kind of started because, advocating for food and in pantries. But then when you look at that one thing, you can't just look at that one thing because food is a symptom, right? Right? Hunger is a symptom. Food insecurity is a symptom of not having enough money to live. Otherwise, they would be buying food, but now they have to pay the rent. So rents are too expensive. So now they go to a pantry, right? It's not separate, it's all together. So when you look at that, you go, it's great that we did that food collection, but if we don't build affordable housing, you're not paying attention here, right? You can't just do that one thing and then go to sleep and say, well, I did that food drive. I love it. They're great, but you can't do that and not advocate at the same time for the root causes of these things, right? You can't do that.
this is
So,
why I'm really the thing I am coming to as we have these conversations is that we're moving, as we say over and over again, we're living in a we've been living in a challenging time, and it's likely going to get more challenging. That the need for collaboration between people who have a commitment to the common good is
mhm.
deeply needed. And so, people who understand the inter that there's an intersectionality to all of this, that it is, as you say, all of a piece.
Yeah, and if you look, the Justice and Peace Commission, I co-chair that, and we've been looking at all those issues and putting out resources for that. And we'll continue to obviously ramp up in the 2025. We're going to be all hands on deck because all these issues are coming up, and you know, they all need advocacy, but we do need to be the moral voice. People of faith need to be the moral voice of this. We need to, and because we live in the communities, we need to say we're good with this. We're standing up to say we're okay with this. Okay? We're okay with affordable housing in our community, right? Because this is what we see in our congregations. And guess what? We have a food pantry and the lines are out the door. So what are you doing? What are you doing?
What are we doing? Thank you for being the moral voice.
Yeah.
And but it's like everybody who comes through the rooms has to answer this question. And the question is a simple one. Where are you? How are you finding hope in this topsy-turvy world,
Mm.
sometimes topsy-turvy world we're living in and challenging times? Where are you finding hope, Diane Riley?
As I said, I do find hope in my community. I do find hope with the people that, with lived experience and all the community workers that I work with who are really dedicated to what they do and are advocates. But I find hope in looking through history. I find hope in my faith with God, and I get quiet in the morning and I thank God for all I have and, ask God to be in my head and in my voice and in my actions. And so I feel hopeful that I can do that. And I've been put in this place to be able to do it, right? But I find hope in God's arc in history, and looking back at dark times before, and seeing how people there were people that were acting and that pulled us out of it to better times, right? And that, we have come a long way and there's still more work to be done, but I know we have incrementally made things better. And I believe we can still do that. I believe we can still do that. So, God is on our side, right? I think, look, read the Bible, this tough times there, reading my Jeremiah now, tough times. But God is with us. God is with us and we'll do it. And that's what I just keep trying to remember.
And it's possible, more possible each day, each moment more possible when people of goodwill join together, as we often do. Um, and what a privilege and a gift that is.
Oh, I
How
know.
much we are sustained by meeting someone else on the road who is also engaged in the work.
It's the best, right? It's the
Yeah,
best.
it's the best.
It's the
It
best.
really, really is a privilege.
Hmm.
Um, Diane Clark, thank you for coming and helping us to see how we can and learn how we can nurture hope through the work for affordable housing. And thank you for being
Yeah.
such a champion of the human family, of the human family.
Mm. Well, thank you for leading Interweave, who's given us such a foundation and such nourishment through your spiritual programs and your spiritual gifts, Janet. And you're the most positive person I know. And I'm blessed to know you. I am.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Um, Ladies and gentlemen, the extraordinary, I believe, the Hall of, what is your award? A Hall of
Yes, Hall of
Famer, a
Famer.
Hall of Famer,
Hall of Famer.
a staunch and beautiful and compassionate supporter of the human family. Thank you, Diane, for being.
Thank you, Janet.
You give me hope.
Yeah.